The 14 Worldwide Grand Prix, the Formula One World Championship Series, has appropriately climaxed at the most charismatic circuit of all, Monza Autodrome. For 60 years, fanatical Italian enthusiasts have flocked here, and nowadays they come with the passionate hope of seeing their beloved Ferraris winning. And after an amazing 2 days practice, their expectations are more than justified today. For 42-year-old Italian-American Mario Andretti, in a one-off drive to replace Ferrari's injured Didier Pironi, has incredibly achieved pole position on the starting grid. Mario heads 6 turbo cars, with Piquet, Tambay, Patrese, Prost and Arnoux second to 6th behind him, ahead of the fastest non-turbo World Championship leader Keke Rosberg's Williams. Then, 8th to 12th, is Giacomelli, De Cesaris, Lauda, Alboreto and Watts. Every one of the 26 starters qualified faster than the lap record, with Derek Daly 13th, Derek Warwick 16th, Brian Hinton 21st, and Nigel Mansell 23rd after a nasty off in which he was totally unharmed. And with only 2 Grand Prix left to complete the series, the Italian could decide. Right, here we come to the end of lap 1, and it's a Renault going through into the lead. It is René Arnoux, who is now going to be a new darling for the Italian crowd because he's signed for Ferrari. Arnoux leads, Tambay second, Patrese is third, Andretti is fourth, and down to 5th position at the beginning of the second lap has gone Nelson Piquet, who was leading.
Yes, Piquet's engine sounded rough as he went past. He was very slow on the straight, so that's a bitter blow for Nelson Piquet. It really sounds as if his serious race is run. They had some trouble with the electrics on his engine in the warm-up this morning that stopped the car out on the circuit. So the Brabham Challenge now looks very much as if it's left to Riccardo Patrese, who is in fact closing up in 3rd place.
Well, now, this is a very interesting political situation because René Arnoux is driving in his last race but one for Renault. He has severed his connection contractually, or will have at the end of this year. He has signed for Ferrari. He is now a bitter enemy of Alain Prost. He's not talked to by the Renault personnel. He had his lunch with the Ferrari people, believe it or not, and Riccardo Patrese is challenging Patrick Tambay for 2nd place, and this is lap 2, the end of lap 2 in this 52-lap race, as they come down to the Parabolica and Derek Daly into the pits. Now, Daly, I saw, was involved in the clash between Warwick and Henton. You see there's a course car out. Arnoux is into the Parabolica. Up into second place has gone Riccardo Patrese. Down to third has gone Patrick Tombe. And now we can start taking the gap between the second Brabham and the leading Renault of René Arnoux. And the gap was 3 seconds. But now Riccardo Patrese is now going to try and take up the running that his teammate Piquet had to relinquish.
Well, Alan Prost isn't going very well. As they went past our commentary position just then, he was in fact running behind Keke Rosberg, and that is a situation which, if Rosberg can keep it that way, will tie the championship up in his favour, unless of course Lauda can get a good result. So Prost is languishing and apparently struggling a bit. Hard to see why. He went well the warm-up this morning. The Renaults didn't stun the world in practice, but when it came to running the warm-up, they went well, and Arnoux is certainly proving that there's nothing a lot wrong with them right at the moment.
Well, lap 3 now. There is Arnoux leading. Patrese second. Can he catch the Frenchman in the turbocharged Renault? So it's a turbo leading, turbo second. The turbo Ferrari of Tombe is in third position. Then in fourth place it is Mario Andretti. In fifth place, and the leading non-turbo, it is the Alfa Romeo of De Cesaris, and off goes the second Tolman. Oh dear, what an awful day for Tolman, because Teo Fabi there out on lap 3. So Warwick out, Fabi out. Here come the first two down the straight to complete a lap, and it's René Arnoux. Now we can take the gap as they go across the line, and the gap with Tombe in third position, and there you see the rest streaming along, is 0.83 seconds, and Patrese is definitely closing. Andretti fourth, De Cesaris fifth. Prost is coming through and taking sixth position from Bruno Giacomelli as we look at Patrick Tombe. There are the leaders. Round the two Lesmo bends. This is a 106, the Grande Curve, I'm sorry, and that's about 160 miles an hour, and Patrese is right up with Arnoux.
Yes, Patrese is potentially going quite a lot quicker than Arnoux. It'll be, and I think the BMW engine, particularly coupled with the lighter fuel load that he'll be carrying, should be able to carry him past the Renault if he gets a good run. He's got a possibility here. He's not quite close enough probably, but he's in the slipstream as they come down under the bridge and up to break into the second chicane. Patrese is not quite close enough this time, but if he can go through the chicane well, he's got a good run down to the Parabolica.
Well, now they go out of the Vialoni, into the Ascari bend and out of it. Now it's fifth gear, 180 miles an hour down here, down to the Parabolica on lap 4. You can see Tombe dropping back. You can see a terrific battle going on for fourth place behind the Frenchman in the Ferrari. But very soon, I would estimate that Riccardo Patrese is going to catch up with and get past René Arnoux, but then he's got to extend his lead to at least 30 seconds by the time they come in at half distance.
You can clearly see, if you watch over the last two laps, the disadvantage once Patrese gets close to the Renault, the turbulence destroys the road-holding performance of his car, whereas when he was 100 yards or so behind the Renault, he was catching up hand over fist through all the corners. Now as they go into the corners, he's a little bit slower than the Renault, and he's got this problem of getting a good run, but he's very close now, but not now, breaking the chicane. He's got the chicane to negotiate. He'd like to get very close through the two Lesmo corners. Here he goes. But once again, the turbulence is probably holding him back, and he's dropped back a little bit. He's got to get really quick through this one. But that's not quick enough and not close enough, I don't think.
Lap 5, the order. René Arnoux leads, Riccardo Patrese second. Tombe is third in the Ferrari, Andretti is fourth. Fifth is De Cesaris, sixth Giacomelli. Seventh is Prost, eighth is Rosberg, ninth is Watson. 10th is Alboreto, 11th is Chiva, and 12th is Niki Lauda. Meantime, the leader, René Arnoux, is definitely pulling away, and the gap between himself and Patrick Tombe now is 7 seconds, and look at this, because Alain Prost is taking Mario Andretti. Well, the race pattern is changing. changing rapidly on lap 7 out of 52. Fastest lap so far, Riccardo Patrese, 1:34.007. There is the race leader, René Arnoux. Now, Arnoux, number 16, has already, in his 63rd Grand Prix, won 3 of them, and he's on his way to the 4th Grand Prix win, and he desperately wants to do this to beat his teammate, Alain Prost, between whom there is no love lost. And you will have gathered that Patrese has slowed down and is coming into the pits. I hope we see this. But here is René Arnoux, new second place man then. You'll see him in a moment. And a long, long way behind, there is on lap 7 in the background, Patrick Tambay. Second, Andretti in the second Ferrari, third, then Prost in the second Renault. The first non-turbo is De Cesaris in the Alfa Romeo, and then Riccardo Patrese, who has dropped back. And into the pits too has come Jacques Lafitte. That is René Arnoux. Now he is building a very, very commanding lead, because as he goes into the Rettifilio, the gap between himself and Patrick Tambay is 7.62 seconds. Then there's quite a long gap with Prost in third, Andretti in fourth, De Cesaris in fifth, Giacomelli sixth, Rosberg seventh, and coming up to take Rosberg as I talk to you and you see Patrick Tambay is John Watson. Now, John Watson is still in the running for World Championship points. Don't forget, he is equal in 4th position with Niki Lauda in the World Championship. But there's a long, long way to go in this race yet, and the turbos could tire. Nelson Piquet is out of the race, and that's one of them gone. So it is now 2 turbo Ferraris, 2 turbo Renaults, and there goes one of them, that of Patrick Tambay, and just 1 turbo Brabham BMW. There is Riccardo Patrese into the pits, and it's quite clear that with the mechanics ready for refueling much too early, Riccardo Patrese, a very unhappy Italian, is out of his own Grand Prix on lap 8.
Well, Alain Prost now has a clear road to Tambay's Ferrari in front of him, and it's a question really of whether he can close that gap and get past, because then we can get into the situation whereby we've got a Renault 1-2, and if it stays like that to the end of the race, will Arnoux obey team orders? Well, he didn't obey them earlier in the year, and I don't think there's much they can't jump out on the track and stop him, and I don't think he's going to obey it. So, and that could be a situation where one could clearly say that it could cost Prost the championship. On account of the French Grand Prix in which Arnoux was ordered to slow down. There is Piquet, by the look of things, limping into the pit, in and out, sort of played with the turbocharger, but looks as if his race is pretty well run. They're probably just trying to fix problems just to identify it for the future.
Well, as we look at Mario Andretti, who is in 4th position behind Alain Prost, the Renault with the red point on its nose cone. The leader is still Arnoux. You can see he's got 7 seconds lead over Patrick Tambay, who seems to be able to do nothing about it. And unless the Renault has trouble, it looks as though Arnoux is well on his way to another win, as Nelson Piquet definitely gets out of and leaves his car. So both the Brabhams away, and they'll be packing the cars up to get away. They have to get back to England for next Tuesday to get the cars ready to go to Las Vegas on Friday. But there is Keke Rosberg. Now, Rosberg is leading to win this race, and if he does, he will ensure the World Championship. He's up behind Bruno Giacomelli, and the order now on lap 10 out of 52 is René Arnoux leading, Patrick Tambay second, Prost is third. In 4th position it is Mario Andretti, in 5th position it is De Cesaris, in 6th position now it is Keke Rosberg, and in 7th position it is Bruno Giacomelli. But this is De Cesaris coming into the pit. Now, this means to say, with De Cesaris into the pit, this means to say that Keke Rosberg has moved up another place. He's having a terrific scrap. So it's Renault's first and third. The Ferrari of Tambay in 2nd position. Andretti is still in 4th place, and there's the battle for 5th.
Well, John Watson seems to have been able to dispose of Keke Rosberg all right. driving yet another good race, and there he is having a go. Bruno Giacomelli going inside him into the chicane, and he looks to have done it. He can just keep it nice and straight through this section. Watson really driving a very good race. Again, he didn't qualify brilliantly, but he got the car beautifully set up for the race and had a very, very good run in race trim with full tanks, and the warm-up this morning was the quickest of the normally aspirated cars and has now moved to the head of that battle, although he's got to get a bit of air between himself and Giacomelli, because with these couple of long straights coming, Giacomelli can... It's very important that Watson does the two Lesmos very well now, which he's got into very well. Oh yes, and he's stretched out a big lead over Giacomelli. If he gets the second one right, he's gone. So Giacomelli will not have another look at Watson if Watson makes no mistakes and his car holds up. He's now asserted himself ahead, and that's good for the championship, because whatever one's feeling of support for whoever one wants to win, it'd be nice if the championship goes right down to the last race, and Rosberg's having to fight very well, because obviously he'd like to throw it up here.
At least the man that you are looking at now, René Arnoux, 34 years old, from Magny-Cours in his 63rd Grand Prix, is going to be driving for a Ferrari next year, so that's some consolation for them as he goes into the Roger, under the bend, under the bridge. Now, out of the Seraglio to the Vialoni, the left-hander. This is a fifth gear bend, down into third, about 11,000 RPM, exits it, believe it or not, at 145 miles an hour. Up into fifth gear, and there is Elio De Angelis, who was in 11th place, and it looks as though the tyre changes are coming very early indeed. I certainly wasn't expecting them as quick as this, but as a calculated risk, the John Player Special Lotus team and Bob Dance, in the head mechanic in the middle, seems to be a bit confused about what seems to be happening if they change the tyres, but they decided to start Elio De Angelis on 3 soft tyres and 1 hard tyre on the left rear. And obviously the softs have worn quicker than they expected, and they're having to change them early in the race, because it's lap 20 for René Arnoux, now leading Patrick Tambay by some 8 seconds.
Well, Alan Prost has finally made a small impression on the leaders in front of him, René Arnoux and Patrick Tambay, and he's closed up a second or so, which is good news for him to say that. He's closing, if he is closing consistently, it's very slow, but let's hope that he's closing it up to give us a bit of excitement from half distance onwards.
It's very interesting as we look at Keke Rosberg, who's leading the World Championship, to think very quickly about the point situation at the moment. There is John Watson, who is in 5th place. Now, Alain Prost in 3rd position is on his way to 6 points if he stays where he is. That would close the gap between himself and Keke Rosberg to only 5 points, because Rosberg is not in the World Championship points at the present moment, in 7th position, and that means that the World Championship would be decided at the last race of the year, the Caesars Palace Grand Prix at Las Vegas, in a fortnight's time. Lap 23, and as we look at the hard-charging Mario Andretti there, you just saw, there's Niki Lauda. Lap 23, Lauda into the pits for tyres. Well, he was having understeering problems in the warm-up, and they made some changes to the car, and it looks as though that's affected tyre wear. Lauda was in 9th position, and that destroys his World Championship chances. So effectively, the World Championship now must be between Keke Rosberg, John Watson and Alain Prost, all of whom are, of course, in the first 6 places, with the exception of Keke Rosberg. But look at now, Alain Prost closing up on Patrick Tambay, who is 2nd, and the gap is down to only 0.6 seconds. The battle for 2nd. The Ferrari, Tambay, the Renault, Prost, 2nd and 3rd. Out of the Rettifilio. Up into 4th gear. Round the Curva Grande. 160 miles an hour. Niki Lauda talking on the left to John Barnard, the McLaren designer. So the World Championship is down to 3 runners now. There's one of them, Alain Prost, number 15. Turbocharged Ferrari being chased by turbocharged Renault. Frenchman at the wheel of both of them. Patrick Tambay, 2nd. Alain Tombay is now 11.3 seconds behind René Arnoux, who is all on his own on the 24th lap. There's Prost. Behind Prost, Andretti 4th. Watson 5th, Giacomelli 6th, Rosberg just out of the points at 7th, Alboreto 8th, Cheever 9th, Lauda down, up to 10th position then goes Nigel Mansell, up to 11th goes Sura, to 12th goes Salazar, to 13th goes De Angelis, to 14th goes Serra, to 15th goes Baldi, and then we are down to the people who are at least 2 laps behind the race leader, René Arnoux, as Tombay and Prost exit the Parabolica, coming up to complete lap 24. And you don't need me to give you a gap, there isn't one anymore. Well, there is, but you couldn't do it on a stopwatch. That's the Rettifilio, the first right and left. Now out of the right, up to the Curva Grande, and I think Prost will probably take Tombay as they come out of the Parabolica at the end of this, the 25th lap, which is coming up to half distance. Half distance, of course, is lap 26 in this 52-lap, 187.4 mile Italian Grand Prix. And if one may make the regrettably obvious remark, we are all watching the Renaults to see whether this time they are going to be reliable. There's an enormous excitement in the Italian crowd now as they see Arnoux, and there is Rosberg ahead of Giacomelli. Rosberg has lost his rear wing. Look, now look at this, number 6. This is really going to cause problems, and Giacomelli is going through. Keke Rosberg then waves him through, and there's no rear wing on the Williams. That will, of course, dramatically affect, to put it mildly, the downforce.
Yes, Giacomelli was signalling to Rosberg that he had lost his rear wing. I'm sure by the handing of the car, Rosberg was aware of it, but it was very kind of him, and it was acknowledged by Rosberg. Well, as they went past the pits, we had Prost challenging Patrick Tambay in the Ferrari. We didn't see if they got through up the corner, but it looked as if Prost was going to move up to second place there. And he is, in fact, closing a little bit on his teammate René Arnoux in the lead. Here is Keke Rosberg, rear wingless, and really these cars, they go like mad down the straight with no wing, but they are more than a handful around the corners, and Rosberg will surely have to come into the pit. But you never know, maybe it's not working so badly. He doesn't seem to be going that slowly. I would have expected him to be in more trouble than that. Yeah, it's wandering about at the back, and I'm sure he'll take it out.
He's been passed by Giacomelli and by Alboreto, and now I expect to see him come into the pits because the Williams mechanics are ready. They know what the problem is. They've got a television monitor in their pit. They will have a wing ready, and Keke Rosberg, when he comes out with a new rear wing, I expect will start a terrific charge to try to get back into the points. Alan Chalice on the left, the head mechanic, is supervising things.
Yes, the problem with a manoeuvre like this is these rear wings are very carefully attached because it's normally a very dangerous thing if one comes off. They're not fitted in such a way so they don't expect to have to make a quick change in the pits. And so I think you'll find that Rosberg is really pretty much out of the points today unless some extraordinary things happen. They don't look as if they're going to get that car back on the road very quickly. And that needs things. But Prost, here is Prost trying to get past Tambay. He's having another go, and he can't quite get close enough. He's had a go there. That's the third lap running, and it's the turbulence as he goes into the corners behind the Ferrari. He slurs through the corners. You see he loses ground there, and he's definitely not quick through the Lesmos when he's got the Ferrari in front of him to mess up his aerodynamics. A little bit bereft of ideas at the moment to get round, but let's hope we stay with this battle and see how Prost goes about it, because here is undoubtedly one of the world's best competitors and top drivers, Alan Prost. He's a truly outstanding driver in the business at the moment, and we'll see how he sets about dealing with this problem. Struggling at the moment.
And Prost's hand goes out. Is he in trouble? He's stopping. Yes, the Renault has again failed. Alain Prost is out, I think. Yes, he must be, of the Italian Grand Prix. And now this blows the World Championship absolutely wide open. Keke Rosberg will fight back. and Prost is touring. Look at him.
Well, what a great shame and what a terrible anticlimax this is, because unless John Watson can score plenty of points today, the World Championship can be finished while everybody's fit from the pits. In fact, half the drivers will be on their way home in aeroplanes while it's getting settled, and that's really a sad way for things to be. So there goes Rosberg out of the pits, but probably out of the points. But it's all over bar the shouting, because Prost looks to be out of it.
Well, you can imagine what a reception the fact that Alain Prost has gone out of the race and let Patrick Tambay, number 27 there, secure his second place, has received here at Monza from the Italian crowd. They have gone absolutely berserk with joy, and now Rosberg is more than a full lap behind Patrick Tambay.
Yes, the Italian crowd, nothing if not sporting, always very keen to take the sporting spirit, cheering like mad at Alain Prost's misfortune, but that has always been a great tradition here at Monza, and it's greatly appreciated by the drivers and everything. They love to be booed and everything when they break down.
Let's look at the situation now. On lap 28 out of 52, René Arnoux is leading very securely, but that one Renault out of the race. Is Arnoux going to last? Prost has rejoined. Arnoux leads. Tambay is second. Up into third position then comes Mario Andretti. In fourth position now is car number 28. While Mario Andretti, in third position. Then behind him in fourth place is John Watson. And there is a stationary Alain Prost, who is definitely out of the race. He blasted out of the pits. And how often have we seen this sight? A rueful, unhappy, not to say angry Alain Prost, and he's at the exit of the Reggiano out of the race.
Now, I would speculate that he spun there and stalled the engine. It looks very much... I think he might have got out of the pits in such a peak of overexcitement that he may, just on coldish tyres, sort of made error there, because if he'd broken down, he would have pulled off the track. In the meantime, we are obliged to pin our hopes to John Watson, for whom, of course, if it works out, this could be a very big break. Rosberg is now 2 laps behind and effectively not in a position to score points, except there is Alain Prost, dejected, walking back to the pits. We don't, per se, know exactly what happened. We would all dearly love to know, but in the meantime, it is a potential break for John Watson. John Watson in fourth place at the moment. That earns 3 points, which would take him up to 33 points, which would mean that he was 9 behind Rosberg. And, of course, he would then have to win. And Rosberg not to score in Vegas, and then he could win the championship, because he'd win the championship. They were equal points. Watson's won more Grand Prix, especially if he had the additional win at the end. However, that's all fairly pie-in-the-sky theoretical stuff. What we need to all cheer for, both for the sake of the championship and for our big British hope, John Watson, is not only that he keeps going and maintains the pace he's done on the road, that he maybe gets a couple of breakdowns or something in front of him to get him a real good bag full of points.
And on lap 32, Arnoux Renault leads. Tambay Ferrari second. Andretti Ferrari a magnificent third in his comeback race. Fourth is John Watson in the points. Fifth is Giacomelli. Sixth is Alboreto, and seventh Cheever. Nigel Mansell has come up from 23rd on the grid to 8th, 1 lap behind the leaders. De Angelis' teammate is 9th, Salazar is 10th, Serra is 11th, and Baldi is 12th. But Keke Rosberg, who rejoined the race in 18th place with that new wing, has now fought his way up to 13th position. But, as James has said, he is 2 laps behind the leaders, and in World Championship terms, it is John Watson who is making the running. There, into the pit comes Bruno Giacomelli, and that's going to help Keke Rosberg, of course, but particularly it's going to help Michele Alboreto, it's going to help Cheever, and it's going to bring Nigel Mansell 1 place nearer World Championship point score. There's Ermanno Kurgi, and by the way, Elio De Angelis is in 9th place in the John Player Special Lotus, 1 lap behind the leaders.
Well, they changed the tyres on Giacomelli's car, but I think he had more trouble than just that, because he slowed right down for that second half of that last lap. He got the completed. He's got out of the pit sounding pretty healthy, back on the track. But if it was just tire trouble, I can't see why he'd slow right down and let everybody pass. So maybe he's got some other bother as well.
There's Andretti. What an incredible man Mario Andretti is. He decided after a very, very unhappy season with Alfa Romeo in Formula One last year that he would return to and stay in America. That is Mark Sura in the A4, the older of the two Arrows cars, coming into the pits. He's in 15th place, 4 laps behind René Arnoux. His teammate Mauro Baldi is in 13th place. There is Bruno Giacomelli being passed by a hard-charging Keke Rosberg. It's the second stop, by the way, for Mark Sura. And on lap 34 in this very, very interesting Italian Grand Prix, René Arnoux is 18 seconds ahead of Colbe, who is 37 seconds ahead of Andretti, who is some way ahead of John Watson in 4th position, with Alboreto in 5th place. Nigel Mansell is going extremely well. He's a lap behind, but he's getting closer and closer to the points. And the order with Giacomelli there into the pit. And don't forget that Andrea de Cesaris was effectively out of the race. And Andrea de Cesaris, that's Alain Prost. Alain Prost explaining to his Renault team colleagues what has happened to him, and not at all happy about it, I hardly found. De Angelis into the pits. Elio De Angelis, who was in 8th position and out of the race. Well, De Angelis was 1 place behind Nigel Mansell. That means to say now that the retirements from the Italian Grand Prix include, right at the beginning of the race, Brian Henton in the Tyrrell, Derek Warwick, who went off with him, Nelson Piquet out in the Brabham BMW, his teammate Riccardo Patrese, the second Tolman, Theo Fabi out, Jean-Pierre Jarier out, De Cesaris effectively out in the Alfa Romeo, Alain Prost, who was in 3rd position in the Renault, out of the race, the man who could have challenged Keke Rosberg for World Championship honours, and Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special Lotus out of the race. As I talk to you, Keke Rosberg in 9th place is shaping up to pass Eliseo Salazar in the ATS, who is 8th. But Rosberg would then have to catch Nigel Mansell, who is a full lap ahead of him, and Eddie Cheever, who is a full lap ahead of him, past both of them to get into 6th place and into the points position. There is Rosberg, which could guarantee him the World Championship, and he's now taking the ATS. There's Salazar on the left. That's the man who featured in the memorable coming together and the physical confrontation with Nelson Piquet at Hockenheim, and Keke Rosberg has surged past him. Rosberg fighting, James, with the problem of a rear wing which may not be set ideally.
Yes, that's right. The team will, of course, had a spare wing in the pit set as best they can to the angle of the one that came off, but they, as you absolutely rightly say, they don't always go on exactly the same, and it's a very fine increment on the rear wing to make quite a big difference to the balance of the car, which is the important thing for getting it round quickly. However, Rosberg looks pretty happy out there for a man who's a long way behind, and certainly with his car, and I think he now has to hope for breakdowns and retirements ahead of him, because he really doesn't have a hope of catching Cheever, who is the one he would have to pass to get into the points, and that's really a full lap ahead of him.
There's the fin from Helsinki and Maidenhead. Keke Rosberg has now an extremely nice home in Maidenhead. So if you like, he's an adopted son of Britain as well as an adopted son of Australia. Everybody loves Keke Rosberg, and why not? He's an extremely nice chap. He is now in 8th position, having passed Eliseo Salazar. As James says, he can only get in the points if at least 2 people retire in front of him. We always talk about the Drivers' Championship, but to the constructors, of course, their championship is even more important than the Drivers' one. And when the Italian Grand Prix started, Ferrari were 4 points ahead of McLaren. Both cars count in the Constructors' Championship. So Tombay, who is second, would get 6 points for Ferrari. Andretti, who is third, would get 4 points. That would be a total of 10. And John Watson would get 3 points for McLaren, and Ferrari would be virtually clear for the Constructors' Championship of 1982, if not totally clear. Arnoux is now on his 51st lap in this 52-lap race, and my goodness, how Keke Rosberg is charging. You just caught a quick glimpse of the tail end of the Williams sliding out there. Patrick Tombay there is going through into his 51st lap. He has now only got 7.2 miles, less than that, between himself and a fine second place. And if he gets that, that will be 6 points. That will give him 25 points in the championship. And if he had started it earlier, he might well have won it. But as Arnoux now comes out of the Parabolica to complete lap 51, to cross the line now to go into his last lap on his way to his 4th Grand Prix victory in his career. He is some 14 seconds ahead of Patrick Tombay. I have got the stopwatch running. The gap now is 14.35 seconds. The second Frenchman is going to be Frenchman first and second. That man will win if he can just keep going, and it would be the bitterest luck if René Arnoux there did not keep going. He's only got half a lap to go now, and the gap between Patrick Tombay and Mario Andretti, who is in third position, and it's going to be a wonderful comeback for the Italian-American. I'm waiting for Andretti to cross the line. He does it, 35 seconds. So the gaps are being maintained all the way round the last lap. There is Arnoux down to the Vialoni, down into third gear, round the right-hander at Ascari, up into fourth gear, down to the Parabolica for the last time. Fifth gear, building up to 180 miles an hour. He will go down into third gear as he sets the car up for the right-hander, and it'll be into the Parabolica at about 140 miles an hour. Just imagine it. He keeps on going. Now he can win in his own time. The man with the checkered flag is out, and for the 4th time, René Arnoux wins a Grand Prix for Renault, and he waves his hand in joy. Of course he does. Patrick Tombay, now the crowd will be able to give vent to their pro-Ferrari feelings. The flags are waving already all around me. Patrick Tombay finishes in second place, and we look back to the Parabolica for the hero of the Tifosi at Milan, Mario Andretti. But there is Arnoux touring in. Well, one Renault failed to finish, that of Prost. 2 Brabham BMWs failed to finish, those of Piquet and Patrese. The Turbo Tolman was out of the race, both of them, Fabi and Warwick, right at the beginning. Both Ferraris are going to finish, and already Arnoux has got his helmet off, and Mario Andretti has finished in third position. Now, is John Watson home yet? No. And already the crowd is starting to surge out onto the circuit. This is traditional at Monza, as it is at Le Mans. And we wait and wait and wait, and the finisher, the flagman, look at that. That is incredible. And there are still drivers driving and racing in this Italian Grand Prix. And we wait for John Watson to come through. We're still waiting for him to come through in 4th position. There he is. John Watson has finished in 4th place, albeit with a rather rough-sounding engine on the overrun. And he is the last man to go the complete race distance. Confirmation then. René Arnoux has won his 4th Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix. Tombay 2nd, Andretti 3rd. Watson finishing 4th, keeps the World Championship alive. 5th, Michele Alboreto, and 6th, Eddie Cheever. And after a fine drive, after having started 23rd on the grid, Nigel Mansell, for the 2nd Grand Prix in succession, has finished almost in the points. 7th place, 1 lap behind René Arnoux, the winner. a very, very interesting and a highly significant Italian Grand Prix. And as you see, Keke Rosberg now leads with 42 points. John Watson has moved up into third position with 33, and that does mean to say that he could still win the World Championship. Pironi, of course, is still in hospital. Alain Prost, non-finishing, is still on 31 points. Niki Lauda, non-finishing, is still on 30, but René Arnoux moves up to sixth position with 28 points, and there is still one Grand Prix of the year to go. That at Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace in 2 weeks' time.